Hmm. God damn, Jimmy. This some serious gourmet shit. Me and Vincent would have been satisfied with some freeze-dried Taster's Choice, right? And these springs this serious gourmet shit on. What flavor is this?
Yeah, because this is a weird fucking card, man. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 18 of Tomorrow's Fights podcast, where we bring you the best analysis around through the eyes of various traditional martial arts backgrounds. Tonight, we bring you a very special Halloween edition of Tomorrow's Fights podcast as we discuss the legend of the Black Beast. We're referring to Derek Lewis, of course, as he takes on Daniel Cormier for the UFC Heavyweight belt on Saturday. Okay, I'm your host, Matthew Catalano, purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and with me, as always, no longer in the white room, his experience lies in kickboxing and Taekwondo. Welcome to the program, Matt Smith.
What's going on, guys?
And our third man in the booth with over 20 years of wrestling experience, also a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What's up, Matt Branscombe?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
All right, so like I said, kind of a weird card. What do we think about it?
As far as the main card goes, I'm actually, kind of excited about it. Not a bunch of huge big names except for the co-main and the main. But when you get to the undercard, when you get to those prelims, it's kind of thin down there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, maybe we should we go through like how we got here in terms of like what the main event should have been, or do we not care?
I feel like we need to explain this because
Derek
Lewis is fighting back to back. That's kind of strange, don't you think?
Yeah, well, and he's fighting for the heavyweight belt, which I just think is hilarious. But you can't say he doesn't deserve it. That's why it's weird.
The man wins.
Okay, so originally the main event was TBA for UFC 230. So this takes place on November 3rd, this Saturday at Madison Square Garden. Obviously, they want to fill any Madison Square Garden card with a big main event. Now, the co-main event was a lightweight fight between Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz, returning from that long layoff after the Conor McGregor loss. Now, a lot of people started speculating that maybe they would bump that up to the main event, or Poirier and Diaz introduced the idea of possibly fighting for the vacant, non-existent yet 165-pound title, which would open up a new division. Of course, Dana White, dismissed this. So that all falls through, or actually before that fell through, they scheduled Valentina Shevchenko on the card against Sijara Eubanks just to get a title fight on the card. The UFC does not like putting on pay-per-views without title fights anymore. So at that point, that's where all the shit started to hit the fan. Nobody wanted that fight. Nobody asked for that fight. Let's see. After that, both of those fights were scrapped. Sijara Eubanks is still on the card, except now she's on the prelims against Roxanne Modafferi. They needed a title. They needed a main event. And they offered Derek Lewis to Daniel Cormier, both accepted on relatively short notice. Remember, Derek Lewis is coming off that win at UFC 229 over Alexander Volkov. So that's where we are now. A couple other shakeups on the main card. Luke Rockhold was supposed to be fighting Chris Weidman, but he got hurt. So they took Jacare Souza, who was fighting Dave Branch, and they scheduled him into that co-main event slot to face Chris Weidman. Dave Branch therefore got Jared Cannonier, who is actually a light heavyweight cutting to middleweight for the first time. Jared Cannonier was already planning on fighting at middleweight, so this is just his new debut at 185. So that's how we got here, and yeah, kind of weird. What do you think, Smith? What's your excitometer for this card? Are you muted?
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Nice.
So excited he can't even speak.
So excited you can't even talk.
I would give it like a 4 out of 10, man. Because honestly, it's just DC, man. He should be going against higher caliber people than this. Nothing against Derek Lewis. Yeah, he wins a lot, but that's the whole main card right here. And yeah, sure, you got Chris Weidman on there. I love to see him fight, but other than that, dude, I don't really have any feelings towards this card. I could do without it.
I like the main card, like Branscombe was saying, and I really like a couple of those fights. I really like Weidman Jacare. I really like Adesanya Brunson. And then the DC Lewis thing is kind of just like goofy as hell, but we'll talk about that later. Prelims are rough, man. I'm not gonna lie. UFC is not paying me to promote this, so I'll just tell it like it is. They kind of suck. I mean, this would be like a nice Fox card, but well, speaking of prelims, let's just jump right to it, okay? So let's tackle the prelims first. Quick disclaimer, in the interest of time, we're not going to go through every prelim. We will each pick, however, our most interesting fight of the night on the prelim card, so that's one to watch out for. We'll also pick our breakout fighter, someone with a win who could go on to do big things, and we'll pick our pink slip fighter, which is somebody we think is fighting for their job. So let's jump into it. Branscombe, why don't we start with most interesting fight on the prelims for you?
I was hoping I would end up going last on this one so that I could explain why I picked this one. And I'm picking Eubanks versus Matafari. And here's why. It's the only fight on the prelims that matters anywhere. If Eubanks goes and wins this fight again, mind you, she's already beat Matafari in the tough semifinals. That's how she got into the finals, and was supposed to be fighting for the first 125-pound championship. So if she goes out there, she wins this fight, she was, going to be fighting for the title. Then would have beat Nico Montoya. Then after that, she, gets kind of pushed back on a card because she lost the weight there. Comes back, wins another fight, was scheduled to fight for the title in this next one coming up, and then gets pushed down to this prelims fight against someone she's already beaten not even a year ago. Maybe a little
right.
Over,
and remember, she was actually scheduled to take on Valentina on this card.
Right.
Right.
So now we've got, if she wins this fight, we've got Shevchenko fighting Jan Jacek coming up. What is it? Is it 231 that she's fighting her at?
Yeah, 231 or 232.
Yeah, coming up next, she'll probably get the winner out of that if she does what she's supposed to. That's the only reason. Now, as far as am I interested to watch this fight? No, the first one was boring. I don't see this one being any better.
You're taking it as an important fight that holds divisional relevance, is what you're trying to say. Right.
The only, and then I look up and down the rest of the prelims, and there's none that, Ben Saunders is always kind of fun, but he's getting on the end of his run, so him and Good would, should be a decent fight. Lyman Good should be a good fight. But I'm not really interested to see it, Jason Knight was fun for a while. It looked like he was going to be an up-and-comer, and then he's been on a long skid. Jordan Rinaldi, I've only seen him fight one time. I went back and watched his other two fights in the UFC, but the one time that I remembered watching him fight, he got demolished by Gegard. What's his name?
Gillespie.
Yeah, Gillespie just got demolished in the first round.
As
completely.
Does everyone else, to be fair.
Yeah, so, I've got really nothing on this undercard that I want to see, so interesting, and I put that in quotes. The fight I'm picking is Eubanks versus Matafari.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, while we're talking about ups and downs, why don't you go ahead and give a breakout and pink slip fighter if it applies?
So, I'm going to say my cut fighter or possibly isn't going to get their contract renewed if she loses another one would be Roxanne Matafari. She's 1-4 since she's been back in the UFC.
The happy warrior, man.
I like her. I like her attitude. I just don't know if she has the physical attributes to be a top tier fighter. She got cut from the UFC last time she was on here. I think she only had one fight in the UFC and then went back. Since she's come back this last time, she looked great at the beginning of the tough show, in the first two rounds and then got beat, put out. She came in against Nico Montoya, same kind of just doesn't have it as a fighter. And the only other person I think maybe Jason Knight, he's on that 3-fight slide, but I think Roxanne Matafari the only thing that would keep Roxanne in is 125 still isn't very deep, and she at least has some kind of name. And if you put her in there, she's going to fight for 3 rounds. Might not be pretty. She might be getting her head bounced off the canvas. Might be a little bit bloody, but she'll be out there.
Yeah, and I think because she's a fan favorite too, she's got a little bit of that, but you can't keep everybody around forever,
right?
If they're not winning.
Right.
In the interest
So.
of time, I'm going to agree with everything you said, to be honest with you. Roxanne, I was actually going to say Jason Knight, but he's kind of younger, so I think they might keep him around. But Roxanne's already 36. So
Yeah.
she probably would be the one that if they're
Wait,
not
wait.
going to
Do you have anybody? Do you have anybody for breakout fighter then?
breakout fighter? No, man. Not
Either
really.
of you?
For me, I was gonna say it's Sajara Eubanks.
Okay, well that's
she
okay
wins
because
this-
that's
she wins this damn fight.
But
She
she's
might
already
be in the
number
title
4
shot.
rank, so
well that's what I was gonna say too though.
But is she a breakout fighter if she's fighting not even as the curtain jerker on the prelims? She's she's deep in it. So if she gets this fight, she wins this fight, she can break out and be fighting for a title very next
Well,
fight.
let's hope that happens.
Sajara Eubanks has like 6,000 Twitter followers or something, something like that. like
Interesting thing I learned when I was looking her up today was she fights out of Team Lloyd Irvin.
ugh.
Yeah, it's just a weird place for a female fighter to be coming out of.
Whoa, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, I'm just saying it's odd.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sajara Eubanks for breakout fighter as well, just because honestly, her almost getting the title shot brought her more, not like fame isn't the right word, but notoriety maybe. Like no one knew who she was, and then once they scheduled her against Valentina and Joe Rogan came out and said, "Yeah, I don't know who the fuck that is," and she got super pissed. People started, probably said, "I also don't know who that is. Let me go find out." So if anything, I mean, she has a little more cachet now, and so if she goes in there and beats Roxanne Modafferi like she should again, then maybe she can just say like, all right, now give me my title shot. So yeah, I think it's okay calling her a breakout fighter. I really don't see anybody else on the prelims that's like a hot prospect. And then for cut fighter, I was gonna say Jason Knight, but he's very exciting even in his losses.
Right.
So you got to think like they'll keep him around just for even some lower tier guys. So,
and he might just, with him being young, he might be just on one of those bad skids. Maybe he catches fire and comes back in. I mean, he beat Alex Caceres, and one of his first fights in the UFC. He's had some fight of the night bonuses. He can perform and get butts in the seats and eyes on the cage. So I think he'll be around. That's why he was my second one down.
Yeah, no, I really like watching Jason Knight fight, and I always pay attention to him because he's got such a sick jiu-jitsu game off his back, and he's one of the few guys that employs like a really good rubber guard. Actually, Ben Saunders does too. Hey, two fighters on the prelims here. And
yeah,
so that's
Saunders. It's weird that he fights out of ATT and fights with that rubber guard because it's not something that they would be known for.
No, I think. Well, isn't he a 10th Planet guy as well?
I think he originally started there, but I think he fights out of ATT now.
Yeah, he might have some Eddie Bravo connection, but okay. Anyways, that's really all I have for the prelims. Other than that, I mean, Brian Kelleher is on the Fight Pass prelims. Oh shit, Lando Venata. That's right. That's what I wanted to talk about. Although I did have Sajara Eubanks as my breakout fighter for most interesting fight, I actually think Frivola versus Venata is going to be pretty fun. Frivola has one of the worst nicknames ever. Matt the Steamroller Frivola. Yep, just the fucking pasta dealer out of Sarah Longo, dude. He's from Long Island, of course. And he was on the Contender Series. He's just like this real aggressive brawler. And he knocked some guy out on the Contender Series, went into the UFC, got knocked out in like 90 seconds, and now he's in there with Lando Venata. So even though Lando Venata is this a bit of a brawler himself with, really no penchant for defense, he should have more than enough to style on Matt's Frivola.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be fun.
And so Lando Venata is out of, looks like he's out of Jackson Wink.
I think maybe now he is after his time in the UFC. Because remember, he came in and gave Ferguson a tough fight. Then he wheel kicked John Makdessi, and everyone is like, this is the next dude right here. And then he loses 3 straight. Besides the draw with Bobby Green. But
yeah.
Okay, anyways, that's all I got for the prelims. Some fun fights. not a lot that mean anything, unfortunately. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, we've talked way more about that than anybody else probably in the world.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's move on to the main card. This is at 10 p.m. November 3rd, this Saturday at Madison Square Garden. Opens up with Derek Brunson coming in at 18-6, taking on Isreal the Style Bender Adesanya, who's 14-0. He's coming off that win over Brad Tavares. This is in the middleweight division. And Smith, this is you. Start us off.
Bro, this is going to be a sick fight. I'll tell you right now. Stylistically, this is like a great matchup. I think both of them are very fast and powerful in their striking. After watching Adesanya, I'm starting to enjoy his striking a lot more. When I started watching more of the highlights, I like his Muay Thai, I like his kickboxing. The one thing I don't like about him is he doesn't cover up that much. He kind of reminds me of Anderson Silva. You know how Anderson Silva always like kind of played a game with a lot of head movements and shit?
Dangles his hands low, right?
Yeah, man. He does a lot of that, and when he does cover up, he only covers up with his right. You never see him cover up with the left. Which, going against Brunson, he's a southpaw, so he just has to worry about that jab. And, technically, Brunson's left. He should be able to block with his right. But I think stylistically, I'm going to give this to Adesanya. I think he's a little bit more crisper. I think he's faster. But this is going to be a hard battle for him for sure. And I'm actually excited about this one.
So you're taking Adesanya?
Yes. Now, we'll go to odds after you guys are done.
Yeah, we'll go to odds after. Yeah, so I wasn't too sure about Adesanya until after the Brad Tavares fight. And now, let me put my little conductor hat on. I am all aboard the Isreal Adesanya hype train. I mean, he just whooped the shit out of Brad Tavares for 25 minutes, save for like the first 40 seconds, and then after that, it was all Adesanya. Now, Brunson is a good wrestler. Brad Tavares is a serviceable wrestler. He's okay. He's not Brunson material, but I think this is the perfect step up for Adesanya. So is it possible that he gets taken down and hurt here? Yeah, but he did a lot of good things in the Brad Tavares fight. He's a terrible range fighter to fight. There's so much distance between Adesanya and the rest of the division, just in terms of his length, in terms of his height and his reach. There was a lot of feints and misdirections, and it's just so frustrating for anyone to get close to him. So what you're going to have with Brunson is he's going to have to shoot from far out. He's going to have to shoot from far out, I think. He's going to have trouble setting up his takedowns. And this was a little while ago, but you go back to the Anderson Silva fight, maybe you could argue that Silva has underrated wrestling defense. I don't know, I suppose, but he was also like 38-40 when that fight happened, and he stuffed almost all of Derek Brunson's takedowns. So it's going to be real interesting to see how Brunson decides to close the distance, because that's where Adesanya does his best work. Also does good work in the clinch. Still makes some mistakes on the ground. Still has just average defensive wrestling, but he's impressed me so much, especially with that 25-minute war with Brad Tavares. Not even a war. It was more like a clinic. And now we know he can go 5 rounds. So, yeah, I see this fight as him hurting Brunson with a ton of body kicks, piecing him apart from outside, maybe surviving a few scary moments on the ground, but ultimately getting a finish somewhere late in the second. And I'm really interested to hear what our wrestling friend Branscombe thinks about this one.
Well, first off, Derek Brunson, he might not be the best of the best wrestlers out there, but he went to Pembroke College, which is a small Division II college just above the North Carolina South Carolina line. That's actually where my high school wrestling coach, and also Xavier's my son's high school wrestling coach, both of those coaches went there. They produce a lot of good wrestlers out of there. He's a 3-time Division II All-American out of there, so he's got good wrestling cred. One amazing thing I saw looking through his stats and everything, he has never been taken down in the octagon in the UFC. He has a 100% takedown defense. What's awesome about that is he fought Yoel Romero, and he fought Yoel Romero for 3 rounds. And guess what? He took Yoel Romero down 3 or 4 times. Literally got doubles in, got in on him, was able to take him down. Now, a lot of those times, Yoel Romero, or every time Yo Romero was able to bounce back up, do what Yo Romero does, and he ended up losing that fight in the third round. The problem with Brunson is, and I took a minute to talk about all that wrestling, and now I'm going to throw it all out the window because he doesn't use it. He likes to punch. He likes to kick. He has 7 first-round stoppages in the UFC. All but one of them are by KO. He doesn't use ground and pound. He doesn't tend to try to hold his opponent down on the ground and keep them underneath them. He likes to, head kick. He likes to punch. He likes to, he's fallen in love with those hands. The problem is he's going up there against a, world-class kickboxer. And Brunson, he had the current middleweight champ in a bad way in that fight, but because he wanted to rush forward without using any kind of real technique, just kind of rushing at him, he ended up, getting caught and knocked out. And that's happened, 4 times in the UFC, in his UFC career, where he's, gotten lazy, wanted to stay standing, and ended up getting, stopped or knocked out.
Right. That's the other thing I forgot to mention is when he is losing, he's usually getting finished.
Yeah. So my thing here is that I do believe Isreal Adesanya is going to win this one. I think he's a very smart fighter. The problem is now people are going to say, well, look, he did really well against a wrestler. And I think he's done well. He's going to do well against a wrestler that isn't going to use his wrestling. Maybe Derek Brunson has a good camp this time. Maybe Renzo Gracie's people gets with them and they say, hey, listen, we need to win this fight, and we need to win it by you putting, this kickboxer on his back, holding him down there and ground and pounding until you get the win. But I don't really see that happening. I haven't seen it in his, 13 fight career in the UFC. So I think Isreal takes this one. And
dude, he's only lost to
beasts.
Yeah. Romero, Silva, Whitaker.
Yeah, and speaking on that,
the Silva fight is kind of an outlier though, because he did try and wrestle there. That's the one thing
But he seemed so like
something seemed off, right?
Yeah, he seemed starstruck in that one. It seemed like he wasn't ready. I remember watching the countdown go into it, and he was speaking with such reverence and like respect that I think he went into that one kind of,
it's
maybe
his only
with the loss
went to a decision.
Yeah, and then when he fought Yo Romero, he fought him with utter disregard. I mean, he literally was throwing punches and then shooting into doubles. He shot doubles from far out and was able to land them.
Well, the Silva fight though, he shot doubles from the fucking locker room. I mean, he didn't set up anything. It was weird.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you take from there if that was an outlier. I gotta think he wrestles here a little bit. Like, that you shouldn't go strike with Isreal Adesanya, right? You gotta think. I don't know.
I think he might have a little bit of size on him too. Isreal looks to me to be undersized for the weight class.
Well,
he might not be able to cut down the belt.
He's tall and long.
Yeah, he just doesn't. He doesn't look like
he's taller than Brunson, and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage.
I'm talking body size when I've seen him up against other people. I mean, you can be tall and not be a big person. And Derek Brunson is a very, very strong individual. I mean, I watched Yo Romero shoot in on him and him dig it out. That can't be easy.
Yeah. One thing I will say is I really like what the UFC is doing with Adesanya here, building him up in this perfect progression. With Vettori, then Tavares, now Brunson. They're not rushing him into anything, and they're not giving him cans. They're not feeding him tomato cans. This is a perfect progression for a prospect. Adesanya looks to be like what everyone wanted Michael Venom Page to be, essentially. He's fighting the proper level of increased opponents. So you guys, I think this is a great fight for him.
You ready
What's
for
up?
the odds?
Yes.
All right. What do you think it is?
Oh, I know what it is, and it's way too wide.
I think so too. Minus 335 for Adesanya, plus 255 for Brunson.
Yeah, that's crazy. Come on, that's too much.
I think that is a little wide.
Minus 330 for a guy who's never fought, really much of anybody except for Brad
Brunson's
Tavares.
only lost to world-class fighters, so it's kind of that's weird.
Yeah, since he's been in the UFC, he's lost to Yo Romero, Robert Whitaker, Anderson Silva, and Jacare Souza. The Jacare Souza was the weird one for me. Like, like he'd lost to him. He
lost twice,
had
right?
a loss to him before, yeah, but in both by basically a head kick.
Yeah,
I mean,
super weird.
Dude,
Yeah.
well, that's not a good sign.
Well, it's
Right, and that's why I
Adesanya,
said
dude,
that's
he's
he's in love with his hands. He doesn't use his wrestling enough for me. And that's not just takedowns. I mean, I'd like to see him take someone down, hold them down, and use top pressure to land little bits of damage to wear him down.
Well, especially like a blue belt level Isreal Adesanya. You know, that should be an obvious target for Brunson's wrestling. So, yeah, I don't know. We're all taking Adesanya, and we're all a little confused at why Brunson fights the way he does. But you know what? When you knock a lot of people out, it's hard to argue that you should be doing something else. I'll say that.
Right.
You know?
He's got way more wins in the UFC than I do.
Sure, if you want to put it that way. All right, let's move along. Next up, we have Carl Roberson coming in at 6-1, taking on Jack Marshman at 22-7. First Welsh fighter in the UFC, by the way. Fun fact. This is at 185 pounds, another middleweight bout. In fact, all 4 of the main card fights before the main event are middleweight bouts. Whatever you want to take from that. And this is you, Branscombe.
This is a weird one for me. Like, I really had to look up both of these guys, and go back and watch their fights, because I neither of them stuck out in my mind. I had seen them fight before, but I couldn't remember much about them. Cool thing about Marshman, like you said, he is Welsh. He might be the first Welsh guy in the UFC, but he's, the Welsh are known for their fighters. Calzaghe, he actually trains a lot with Gavin Reese's boxing. Marshman, that is. So, they're a fighting people. Looking at his fights going up to this one, he's very good with those hands. He's got a very boxing heavy style. Apparently he started his martial arts with, boxing in the military. He spent 2 tours in Afghanistan. I don't see how he's going to be able to pull out a win on Roberson here, who I think is just a little bit better in every aspect of it. Roberson is a kickboxer. It seems like his striking is a little more polished. As long as he can move and get some kicks started, I think he'll win the stand-up game. He does have 3 wins by Roberson has 3 wins by submission, even though both of these guys in their last loss looked very, very amateurish off of their back.
Well, also, like who are they fighting, though? World champions.
Yeah, Ferrer and...
But no, I agree. Their ground game is not their strength.
But I would have to give the edge again to Roberson in this one. I think he's a little bit better than Marshman is. And, watching what the 6 fights that I had available for these 2 to fight, it seemed to me like Roberson was even better in the clinch off the cage. He was able to knock out the guy on his contender series fight with the elbow. He's able to rely on, doesn't seem like very good wrestling, but he's able to rely on that to keep himself on his feet when he wants to, or end up on top. I believe he lateral dropped somebody in one of his fights.
Would you say he's explosive?
Oh yeah, he is definitely explosive. He's that, athleticism, I would say he has the edge in that too. So off of the limited stuff that I have to go on here, I'm gonna call Roberson in this one. And I'm also gonna ask, why in the fuck is this on the main card?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I had no clue who the fuck they were, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna have to go by the odds on this one, and I'm gonna choose Roberson just based on the odds. I guess people know better than me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have a confession to make as well. When I was studying tape for this fight, I went on to UFC Fight Pass and I started typing in Jack Marshman's name. After watching all of Roberson's fights, and then I started to remember who he was because he was on the Contender Series. So as I start to search for Jack Marshman, I was a little lazy and I only typed in Jack. And something was a little finicky with my fight pass where a lot of the fighters were coming up as like shadows and I couldn't see their name. But the one guy I was thinking of and who I recognized came up in his picture, and I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. That's who I'm thinking of. He's the guy that just beat Talis Lades. He's the guy who looks to me like a poor version of Anthony Smith. And so I pull up his fights and I see, okay, there's the Talis Lades fight, there's the Brad Scott fight, and I'm looking at my phone on Wikipedia at the same time. None of these fights are matching up. And I'm starting to lose my mind here until I realize the guy I was looking at on Fight Pass was Jack Hermanson, another 185-pound fighter, because they're all the fucking same in the middle of that division. But here's the thing. Here's what I learned.
And watching the Marshman fights, if you would notice, the 3 fights that they would like they would suggest 3 fights underneath it were all Jack Hermanson. I noticed it.
Yes.
Yeah, the same thing.
Well,
they like if you normally you could click on a fighter's name, watch the fight, and then underneath it would have more of his fights. It would default down to another Jack. Just because I guess there were more fights for him. Yeah.
Well, and then there's another guy, Jack Hershart or whatever. Anyways, moral of the story: Jack Marshman is not Jack Hermanson. But even if he was, it doesn't fucking matter because Carl Robinson would beat the shit out of both those guys. Okay? Yeah. Carl Robinson is a patient, strong kickboxer. He fought fucking Jerome LeBanner in his debut kickboxing match, just like for the fun of it, and went to a decision. So, I joked about him being explosive, but he's 10 times the athlete that Jack Marshman is. Marshman, like you said, he has a good fundamental boxing game. That's about it. They both look pretty out of their space on the ground. Roberson is faster, stronger, quicker, better everywhere on the feet. And unfortunately, Marshman likes to be there. So he's going to play right into that game. Also, Roberson might throw some of the nicest body kicks I've ever seen, aside from Adesanya, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Even in that fight against Cesar Mutante that he lost, he only threw 1 strike, and it was a kick to his thigh. It was a leg kick, and there was a huge red welt on Mutante's body just because of the 1 strike that he threw. And of course, he got arm triangle.
It didn't save him. Yeah.
Of course, it didn't save him. But
left arm triangle. He was on his offside, squeezed him out.
Yep. Of course. And then. Yeah, Marshman lost to another world champion in Shoeface. Shit, what's his name?
Herrera.
Yeah, whatever. So those are not bad losses. I mean, I don't really like when they feed these prospects to these jiu-jitsu world champions just because it doesn't teach us anything. I don't think. But
well, hopefully, it teaches them something.
Yeah. Teaches. Okay, if you're in mount and there's 15 seconds left in the fight. Don't fucking turn over and give your back. Just sit there, all right? Lesson. Because that's what Jack Marshman did and got choked out with 14 seconds to go after surviving in half guard and mount for 4 minutes. Why? Why give up your back?
Back at 14 seconds. You might as well just hold on to whatever choke there is. You better just hold on for that ride.
Yeah, it was weird. So, okay. Anyways, what are the odds for this fight?
All right. Roberson is -275, and Marshman is +215.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm good with that. And I was gonna say this might be a 1-round fight, but I'll say maybe it goes into the second, just because how tough Jack Marshman is. He's tough as hell.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be able to
make it into the second.
Yeah, he's gonna be able to take more punches than he is, fight off submissions, and this is definitely gonna be a kick punch fight. One thing I will say that I did notice about Roberson's grappling, when he was having trouble finishing that rear naked choke, he did switch arms and was able to finish it with his left arm as well, which might be not as hard as finishing a arm triangle choke with your non-dominant hand, but he was able to pull that off in that fight.
You're talking about when he was fighting Darren Stewart.
Darren Stewart, yeah, he was fighting for a rear naked choke, was using his right arm, guy kept pulling the arm and he eventually switched over, during kind of a transition to a left hand across the neck and was able to finish it with a short choke on that side.
Yeah, that was impressive. That was good stuff. Darren the Dentist Stewart, great nickname. Okay, well, let's move on. to the middle of the card. Another middleweight bout, like we said. David Branch, 22-4, takes on Jared Cannonier, who is 10-4. Now remember, Jared Cannonier actually came into the UFC as a heavyweight and then moved down to 205. And now this is actually going to be his debut at middleweight. I had to do a little bit of research because when I first saw this, I was like, there's no way Jared Cannonier is making 185, is he? But yeah, he says he's going to try.
And he's looked better as the years have gone on. He had 2 fights at heavyweight and then 6 at light heavyweight.
He's only 5'11" though.
Yeah, but he looked short. He doesn't have really broad shoulders. I mean, he had a lot of vestigial fat around his stomach area. He looked way better at light heavyweight. So I'd like to see how he looks coming in at middleweight.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting to see if he makes the weight and what he looks like. He was actually already planning on cutting to middleweight before this opportunity came up. So this is not like a super short notice thing for him. He was already going to take a fight against somebody else at middleweight. And then when Branch lost his opponent, when Jacare moved up to fight Chris Weidman, Cannonier got the call. So that's why he's here. So that's something to keep our eyes on. It's his first fight at 185. This is going to be a tough fight for Jared Cannonier, I think. Branch has a way of making people look bad, even if the fights themselves don't look good. He's got a good jab. He's a solid Renzo Gracie black belt. I believe he's under Renzo.
Yeah, his black belt is under Renzo Gracie.
That's right. Yeah, he's a solid Renzo Gracie black belt. If he wants to, I'm pretty sure he can just ground Jared Cannonier and just work him over from Top Game, or he can kind of just jab him to death from the outside. That Thiago Santos fight, that got a little crazy. I mean, he got hurt there, and he didn't look nearly as measured as he usually does, but I think that's more of Santos's game plan sort of infecting David Branch in like a firefight there. That's not usually how he fights. So I think this is going to be a tough first fight for Jared Cannonier at 185. I see Branch winning on the outside with his jab, getting the takedowns, and just working on top of Jared Cannonier. Glover Teixeira couldn't submit him, but he pretty much did whatever he wanted when he was there. Tough fight for Jared Cannonier. I think we're going to see a 30-27 clean sweep David Branch dealio going on here. I also think it's going to be pretty boring.
Yeah, that's kind of what my thoughts was when I first saw that this was the fight that they made after Cannonier was pushed up into this. This is going to be one of those kind of slogger fights. Both fighters are I wouldn't say sloppy, but they're not technically pretty on their feet. Though David Branch is a Renzo Gracie black belt, he has great jiu-jitsu. He doesn't tend to use that a whole lot in his fights. You don't see him, he's not a wrestler. He doesn't go for takedowns. He will, work off of.
Has he even won a fight by submission?
I mean, maybe in the WSOF, World Series of Fighting, but
yeah, that's another interesting point to bring up. He was in the UFC before. He had just 4 fights in the UFC. His very first fight that he came out, he wasn't doing very well against who was it? It was wrote it down here.
Well, remember when he got his knee ripped off by Husamar Palhares?
Yeah, that was his last fight. That after that fight, they let him go. He went out of the UFC and went 13-1 outside of the UFC. His only loss coming to Rumble Johnson.
That's right, at 205.
He was able to pull off and win the World Series of Fighting light heavyweight title and the middleweight title and hold both of those consecutively before getting the call to come back up. Since he's been back, I think he's 2-1.
It's like 2-1 or something.
Yeah, 2-1 since he's been back. It hasn't been, other than his performance against Luke Rockhold, it hasn't been that great of a run. And I think that was kind of why he got let go before, because he won 2 fights, but those 2 fights were kind of boring, and then the ones that weren't boring, he ended up, losing. So
yeah, it was kind of weird when he got let go, to be honest. I mean, he wasn't on like a losing streak per se. Yeah, but it was Gerald Harris. He went for a triangle. Gerald Harris picked him straight up, dropped him right on his head, and knocked him out. Oh, that's right. He was one of the dudes that Gerald Harris slammed TKO'd.
I went back
That's
and watched
right.
that whole fight again, and I must have counted like 9 times that Goldberg said, and that's the power of Gerald Harris. And that's the kind of power you get with Gerald Harris. And I was like, oh, I liked Goldie as a person, but goodness
Because
gracious,
Goldie
I do
just
not
wanted
miss
to like
that.
put himself back into Pride and watch like Rampage and Arona and
Yeah,
just
that's
be
the
this, like,
power.
he wants to romanticize like all of the moments in history of mixed martial arts.
But having said what I said about David Branch, I do believe he's got more than enough to win this fight. Cannonier, he fights out of the MMA lab. He's a tough kid. He's been around for a while. He's trying new things because things aren't working. He's not been super successful in his career, but maybe he's given this middleweight shot a chance. And this is another one of those fights where the question is at the end of it, what the fuck is this doing on the main card? This could be on the prelims of a fight night.
I know why it's on the main card. Like when you're drinking a lot of beer and you have to take a piss halfway through?
Okay, here we go.
This might be the perfect opportunity to go take a piss break. You know what I'm saying? You're not missing much.
Oh, this is the beer break fight right
I
here.
honestly believe this is on the fight card because he's out of New York and they wanted another New York fighter.
I was actually going to say the only reason I'm choosing him is because he fights out of New York.
Yeah, you got Weidman and you got Branch out of New York.
Well,
honestly,
also
though, he does have the speed. I think in the end, this should be easy for Branch all day. It's not going to be exciting though.
Exactly.
This is your.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go back and pick Brunson over Adesanya then, just because we all keep picking the same thing over and over.
Oh, I think it might change next fight, but
oh, it'll definitely change next fight.
Dude, you know what's weird about, or it's not weird, but something I wanted to note. Did you guys ever watch the David Branch defending his 205-pound World Series title against Vinny Magalhães? Do you ever watch that fight?
No, I haven't seen it.
Because it's interesting because obviously Vinny Magalhães, world champion Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And
he's in the finals of their tournament right now for their middleweight Grand Prix, which it's now called something else, but it's still the World
Series. It's called PFL, Professional Fighters League. Yeah, he's doing really well. He's submitting everybody left and right, like some guys twice in one night. It's like super cool. And I've always liked watching him fight. But anyways, I was interested in that fight when it happened because, of course, Branch is like, I wouldn't call him a high-level black belt. He's a respectable black belt, but he is not the level of like a world champion like Vinny Magalhães. Well, that fight was a 25-minute decision, I believe. And dude, he just jabbed him to death the entire match. It was so boring.
Mm-hmm.
But he won every round. And it's like, after I saw that, I mean...
Yeah, and if you remember, he was using his jab and his lateral motion very well against not Chris Weidman, but Luke Rockhold. He was looking good against him until, I remember the commentators being very, very concerned with, what was going on. They thought it was going way worse than I did, but... he was looking very good against Rockhold. Now, mind you, that was after Rockhold,
it was also because it's pressure.
Yeah.
And that's when they came in with a great game plan and they realized, look, Luke Rockhold cannot take pressure striking well at all.
And we found out David Branch can't take top pressure.
Well, I think we found out that the one part of Luke Rockhold's game that hasn't deteriorated is his great top game grappling.
Yeah, top game.
Okay. Anyways, what are the odds for this fight, Smith?
So the odds are, minus 450 for Branch, plus 325 Cannonier.
That's a little high.
True, that is.
I mean, Cannonier hits hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people worried about that cut.
Yeah, well, I think they think that he's not going to get a chance to hit him at all. I think he's going to be on his back. But who knows? All right, let's move on to the co-main event. Again, another middleweight fight. Chris Weidman comes in at 14-3, taking on Untitled Jacare Souza at 25-6. And one interesting thing about this fight is they are both coming off fights with Kelvin Gastelum.
Mm-hmm.
That's their last opponent for both of them.
And one.
Yeah. And Smith, this is you. Start us off.
All right. So I'm going to take a page out of Branscom's book here, and I'm going to say Weidman's going to win this due to his wrestling. All right? I'm serious, bro. I'm taking a page because I think it's the only way. Like, Souza has got some really dirty submissions, right? But I think that he can do enough to stuff all the takedown attempts and everything else. So I think that Weidman's going to win. He's going to try to keep the standing. He's going to keep it on the feet, and he's going to brawl.
So you think he's going to use his wrestling defensively to outstrike him?
Yes.
So it's possible.
That's what I believe is going to happen. Plus, he's a New York boy, so I got to choose him. But he is also coming off a win for Gastelum, and Souza's not, so that might play into it. Who knows? But
MMA math time, ladies and gentlemen.
I personally, I'm going to go with Weidman on this. I think this is where we're going to defer on the card, is this match right here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that totally could happen. I'm actually, I just can't trust the durability of Chris Weidman anymore. I just can't do it. And this fight actually, in general, this is something that I wanted to see like 3 years ago. I actually thought that when Weidman was looking unstoppable after the Anderson Silva fights, after the Machida fight, after the Vitor fight, where he was on top of the world, I thought Jacare was going to be the one to do it. And now fast forward 3 years and, you know, they're both looking like a little bit less of themselves, I'll say. But Chris Weidman even more. Like, I know he submitted Gastelum with the arm triangle. Okay, that was great. But he also almost got knocked the fuck out in the first round. I just don't think I can trust his durability anymore. Like, he used to have this great like pressure striking game, and after that Luke Rockhold fight, never looked the same. I mean, I don't know if he just got old fast, a lot of injuries piled up, but I just can't trust him to be that 5-round juggernaut against Lyoto Machida that we saw 3 or 4 years ago. Now, Jacare too, like I said, he's definitely a step behind. We talked about the Robert Whittaker fight where he was injured with the what was that? Like a pectoral like tear or something?
Yeah, he had a tear in his up in the top portion of his pec right before it goes into his
So I mean,
shoulder.
we can discount that fight if we want, but again, then you have the Gastelum fight, which was close, but I did score it for Kelvin. The thing is, like, if I was going to pick Chris Weidman here, it would have to be because I believe that he's going to win on the feet, like you were saying, Smith. And I'm not sure I believe that anymore. I think the one thing that you don't lose, or that you lose like last, is your pressure grappling and your top game grappling. And I think Weidman still has that. And you saw that with the Gastelum fight. And a lot of older fighters, that's like the last thing they go, is they always still have their jiu-jitsu and their pressure game. Just like GSP too. Well, he's not going to have that against Jacare. And so what is he left with? He's going to have to win a striking match and defend the takedowns. Maybe he can do that, but I don't think he can. I think he can defend the takedowns.
Defense is pretty good.
Right, but I don't think he can win the striking match. And so I have to pick Jacare here to win probably a decision, maybe like a tough 2-1 type of fight. So that's what I'm going with. I'm picking Jacare just out of kind of like a longevity, and even though he's older, he seems to me like the more youthful fighter. So that's who I'm taking. Branscombe, what do you think?
I don't know. I can't really pick against either. Both of these guys have been my guys. Chris Weidman, obviously, for obvious reasons, he's a tough wrestler. You know, was able to pick up a nasty submission game himself, and has great hands, and seems to have a very good fight IQ. Jacare Souza, I've been watching since he was in the Dream middleweight tournament way back. God, that had to have been in 2008, 2009. Have been a fan of his ever since. I hate to see, the thing that sucks about this fight for me is I hate to see either one of them lose another fight again. If somebody had a gun to my head, I would have to say I see something different right now, and I think maybe Chris has a little bit more in the tank left than Jacare does. Jacare seems like he's been going downhill for a little while. He seems to me like he's been losing a step a little bit faster than Chris Weidman. And Chris Weidman's couple of losses that he's racked up here. That I know it's hard to look at this, but he did lose. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. But in the Luke Rockhold fight, first couple of rounds, he won. Was winning, doing it might have been one. He won the first round, maybe lost the second, and was coming back in the third, winning that one pretty good, and then did a stupid spinning kick mistake, cost him the fight. He ended up underneath Luke Rockhold, got smashed for a while, and came out for the 4th round, but he was nothing coming out there.
Arguably should not even have come out for the 4th round.
Yoel Romero, he goes out there all 3 rounds in that Madison Square Garden fight, whooping his ass. Looked very good against Yoel Romero, and then Yoel Romero did some Yoel Romero shit and flew halfway across the ring with his knee, hit him in the fucking forehead, splits him wide open.
As is tradition.
And then the Gegard Mousasi, first off, you can't ever look at a loss to Gegard Mousasi as being, you're done. Shit, that guy he's a monster. I cannot believe the UFC let him go. I believe he might be the best, if not one of the best, definitely one of the best middleweights in the world. And losing to him, and I believe it was a quick stoppage in that one. I didn't go back and watch the fight.
Okay, but he was not winning that fight.
Right, but anything could have happened. I thought it was closer. They were doing all right against each other, and then something happened where he went down on his knee, caught a knee in the forehead. I can't remember exactly what happened, and then he beat.
It was a weird no contest. Yeah,
I thought other than getting clipped in the first round in the Kelvin Gastelum fight, he beat the shit out of the guy that's going to be fighting for the middleweight title next. So
I'm just going to put something out there too. Weidman's the only person to beat Anderson Silva twice. All right.
Yeah.
Let's just throw that out there real quick.
Actually, he's the only guy that Anderson Silva beat himself up against and broke twice in a row.
So I don't know, man.
All right, so both of you are taking Weidman. Now, here's the thing, Branscombe. We would be doing a disservice here if we didn't discuss what happens when it hits the floor with these two.
Yeah, the Souza on the ground is just as scary as Rockhold, but he's scary from both positions. He's scary from the bottom and he's scary from the top. He can rip a Kimura from anywhere with his athleticism, with his strength. If he gets a hold of an arm that's dangling, he's going to get it over the hip and around the back, and he's going to rip that thing off. He's also catching guillotines from top and from bottom. Chris Weidman, blue chip wrestler, Hofstra wrestler, has all the credentials to go on the mat there, but I think I would still give the submission edge to Souza. It would be interesting to see whether Chris Weidman would be able to take a top position and hold it. Souza, being very, very slick, has fought all of the best jiu-jitsu black belts in the world and, held his own, if not beat them. It's very interesting to me. I'm picking Weidman just because I think he's got a little bit more left in the tank. That's it. As far as their skill sets go, I think they're both pretty evenly matched. I would say Chris Weidman has the edge with his hands, Jacare Souza with his feet and his kicks. I would say Weidman has the advantage on takedowns and top pressure, Souza on bottoms and submissions. So this will be very interesting for me.
Yeah, I guess Weidman to me just hasn't looked good on the feet in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's given me pause.
He's always looked clunky. He's always looked a little bit
not in the Machida fight, and not even in the Silva fight. He pushed him back, and he knocked him out. What do you want to say? Besides the leg kicks,
right. Well, he had good defense in that Machida fight.
Yeah,
he was able to protect himself.
Dude, I'm a firm believer. Once you get knocked out, you get a little bit more cautious on your feet.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
And you saw, dude, Silva never looked the same. A lot of people get these amazing knockouts done to them. They don't come back the same.
Well, it's like they get old overnight,
Yeah. But let's go to the odds on this.
Okay. What do we got?
Weidman's minus 185, Souza's plus 150.
Oh, the odds maker favor me. Or favor Weidman.
I'm okay with that. it's the MMA math too, right? They're both coming off a win/a loss to the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
Weidman has a higher rank.
Yeah, because that's something picked by 12-year-olds in the UFC nepotism
Who the
offices.
hell knows how that works?
Right. Okay, well, without further ado, let us move on to the main event, which is the heavyweight title fight between Daniel Cormier, who comes in at 21-1-1, and Derek Lewis, who comes in at 21-5-1, which is a surprisingly solid record for one Derek Lewis. And this is you, Branscombe.
I feel like I just talked about these guys. I feel like I just went over every little bit of their record and every little bit of their pluses and minuses. Daniel Cormier, we know, Olympic level wrestler. Derek Lewis, I don't know what he's Olympic
level wrestler.
Yeah, I don't know what he's Olympic level at, other than being hilarious on the mic, having one hell of a social media presence, dropping one-line bombs like "my balls was hot." I mean, that is Olympic level shit talking on the mic right there. Taking your pants off in the middle of the ring is Olympic level just trolling. But I will give Derek Lewis this. I don't know how well anybody could hold him down when he doesn't want to be held down. The problem is Daniel Cormier is going to get on top of him. If he's going to try to use that time that he would normally use, we discussed this a lot last time, he uses his time on bottom to kind of recharge. He doesn't seem to normally take a whole lot of damage. Well, Daniel Cormier comes from a whole different camp than this guy has ever dealt with before. Even though it's called the American Kickboxing Academy, this camp is known for getting your ass on bottom, fucking you up, and not letting you up without you sustaining a lot of damage. Luke Rockhold can do it. Cain Velasquez could do it. And Nurmagomedov can do it, and Daniel Cormier. They all do the same thing. They get you underneath them, and they grind your ass into that mat. And every time you go down, you come up a little bit less than what you went down as. My thinking is that, yeah, Derek's going to come out swinging, but Daniel Cormier is a smart enough boxer, and he's got a good enough chin that he's going to be able to withstand that. He's going to get his takedown. I hope to see him get picked up and dropped on, pick him up and drop him on his head. That would be awesome to see him pick up a 285-pound fighter. By the way, that's what he weighed a couple of weeks ago, or last week. So that's kind of where I see it going. We'll get to that in a minute.
You want to know what the odds are? We'll get to that later.
Because I checked a little while ago, and I wonder if they stayed that wide, or if Derek Lewis has got a bunch of people betting on him just for shits and giggles.
So here's the thing: does it go past the first round?
Yes, it does. I'll answer that question. Yes, it does. It does.
I don't think so.
Dude, Derek Lewis,
if it goes past the
survive.
first round, it's not gonna last very long into the second.
So here's the interesting thing about him. How the fuck did he decide to take this fight after just fighting? Didn't he, at the end of the fight, talk to Joe Rogan and say he didn't even want a title shot? Or was I just hearing things?
I think
he
they
said
held
his cardio was like shit or something like that. He even admitted it.
That wad of cash.
I think it was the cheddar.
If you want this fight,
your
Madison Square Garden,
and your fat ass ain't getting fucking in shape in 4 weeks.
I'll take $1 million. No, I don't know if you watched the Embedded, but he's been running up and down parking garage stairs. He's good. He's straight. He's got this shit fixed, brother. He's at 285 pounds right now. Yeah, he's gonna.
Honestly, I don't know what the fuck's going on here, dude. I feel like this.
By the way,
La La
he's out
Land
buying yachts.
because
he might need a money manager. I don't think Derek Lewis needs to be buying yachts.
But this is Madison Square Garden, and this is the fucking headliner. This is a joke of a fight if I've ever seen one.
It's a fun fight.
Let's be realistic.
It's better than Sajara Eubanks versus Shevchenko, and at least
it's a fun fight.
Bro, DC is better in every single fucking category across the board.
Except maybe punching power.
Dude, I like Derek Lewis. I think I chose him last time too, I believe, and everybody was laughing about it. But
I was laughing while he was winning too.
Yeah. Motherfucker does have a good track record. That's
all
why I chose
11
him.
seconds of it.
But this is a joke, dude. DC is going to manhandle him like he's a baby. And he's a big boy. And DC's still going to manhandle him. To me, this is a joke.
All right, so what you think is going past the first, though?
So here's what I'm going to do. because you know me, I always got to choose one that doesn't go with the odds. I'm going to choose Derek Lewis because he's got a good track record. But DC is going to win this fight. All right.
Okay.
That's some fence straddling bullshit right there.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No, but you guys said that if I'm going to choose the odds, I have to choose somebody who doesn't go against the odds. So
That's
I'm going to
true.
choose Derek Lewis. He's going to get pounded and demolished, but it would be funny to see DC get knocked out by Derek Lewis and him become a champion. That would be hilarious. So I'll choose it just for that.
I think that would actually be sad. Anyways,
He somehow wins every fucking fight. I don't know how.
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, I'm picking Daniel Cormier. A couple things. I don't think that Cormier is going to get the pickup on him. I think that'd be cool, but you know, we talk about like the Josh Barnett pickup where he threw him over his head.
Oh, are you talking like a slam?
No, I'm talking like he literally lifts his whole
Crotch
body
lift.
and
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
do that.
crotch
like
lift.
a crotch lift and like dumps him over his head. Like I don't think we're gonna get to see that.
Honestly, is Lewis's defense even that good? He could
No,
probably
but
just pull him down with a
he's
single.
so fucking big, dude. And Josh Barnett is not as big as Derek Lewis. Also, remember when Daniel Cormier did that? He was like 34, 33. He's 40 years old now. He's not. I don't think he's gonna pick him up. What I do think he's gonna do, though, I think as soon as the bell rings, he's gonna shoot in on a single leg, run the pipe, dump him on his back.
He'll hold him there
sit
all
on-
day.
Sit on Derek Lewis's stomach, and when Derek Lewis decides to turn over and get up, he's just gonna climb onto his back and choke him out.
I do want to
Yeah,
clarify.
what DC as a master is you know, that dirty boxing on the inside, getting you to get close enough to him, using his hands. He stands very straight up at the beginning, and
Yeah.
and in most of the, you know, when they're away from each other this far away, he's standing straight up and down as if he was a technical striker. Then they
Right.
get close enough, and he's able to dig at least one underhook or do some sort of dirty boxing, and then it's a snatch single. He reaches
Right.
down there, locks underneath, pulls that up to your knee, and then dumps you off. He,
Right,
you know,
and I think that's exactly what we're gonna see. And shit, what was I gonna say?
I do want to clarify something real quick. I'm not saying Derek Lewis is bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think he
He's
does
pretty
what he
bad,
does.
dude.
Okay, no, but he does what he does very well. He knocks people out. It's enjoyable. There's a place for him. I think he's funny. I think his Twitter's funny. But I think DC controls every aspect of this fight.
So Derek
he's
Lewis-
he holds 2 titles right now. This is
Yeah.
It's a whole nother league than Derek Lewis.
Well, there's also a whole reason that DC even took this fight within 30 days' notice, right? Instead of a more luxurious Brock Lesnar or John Jones fight, and we know that DC he only wants to fight like 1, 2, or 3 more times. He took this Derek Lewis fight because it's an easy paycheck. Like this is gonna be a 3.5-minute fight. That's what I think.
And it's a title defense, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is though, like when we did the show last and we talked about Derek Lewis, like Zane said it best. He's a testament to how bad the heavyweight division really is, and he's also a testament to how MMA is unpredictable. And he reinforces the whole moniker of one punch can change anything. Well, with Derek Lewis, it's true because he hits so goddamn hard, and it's true at the heavyweight division. If you take those last 10 fights he's been in, he has a 9-1 record in his last 10. I'm pretty sure that more than half of those fights he was losing up until he won.
Dude, that last
It
fight
happened.
was bad.
Of course, the last fight was the most exaggerated example of it. The Volkov fight he was losing, the Tybura fight he was losing, the Shamil Abdurmakimov fight he was losing. He just hits so goddamn hard. He just kind of waits. He
I
just
feel
waits
like
until he knocks people out.
He gets his win back, and then he just throws a bomb, and then he gets his win back. Like that's
well, here's the thing.
Same
Here's
thing
the
every
thing.
single time.
Daniel Cormier is not Marcin Tybura. He's not Alexander Volkov. He's not Shamil Abdurmakimov. He's much, much better than that. He's much more punishing on top, and he can actually grapple. That's not good for Derek Lewis. The other thing about Derek Lewis is he just doesn't sprawl. He just doesn't move his hips back. He can get some underhooks and defend some things against the fence. But if DC shoots like a low single on him, or even if he goes from an underhook to a snatch single, Derek Lewis just doesn't get his hips back. He just falls. he falls, and then he
And his
trusts
only
that he's going to
strategy-
survive.
His only strategy on his back is he literally bear hugs a guy, holds his head down so that person can't work, so that he can recover his breath. I don't see that happening versus DC.
Yeah.
DC's
Well,
a strong dude. He's going to be able to control this. This is bad.
and one more
This is just bad.
thing we can touch on that I want to bring up that's actually kind of funny is Daniel Cormier was on Ariel Helwani's show, and he said that Derek Lewis has a habit of like bench pressing people off of him and mount, which is true. And Daniel Cormier said, if he tries that with me, I'm going to armbar him, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I think what's actually going to happen is Derek Lewis is going to turn, give up his back, and get choked out. I don't believe that Daniel Cormier would actually risk losing position by going for an armbar, but damn, that'd be funny.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm picking DC, and I think this is going to be like a 3.5, 4 minute fight. I think it's going to go straight from a single leg to mount, giving the back to a rear naked choke. 4 minutes into the
think
first round.
You're going to see in the first round what DC can do to him. I think he will survive to the second, and he will get demolished in the second. I don't see it going past second round, though.
Fair. All right, what are the odds?
Whew. Let's see here. Minus 700 for DC, plus 450 for Lewis.
Yeah, so it's moved a little bit. I remember seeing most of it last week. Most of the lines were between negative 850 and minus 9 something for Cormier. So people are betting on Brunson. I mean, not Brunson. Derek Lewis.
Dude, all it takes is one hit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at heavyweight, it's true, though. It
is.
does. Okay. That's all we got for the main card. Let's move on quickly to listener mail. We have quite a bit tonight to talk about. Okay. First question.
I'll tell you what, though, in a street fight, I want Lewis on my side.
I mean, he's huge. All right. First question comes from the MMA subreddit. Green49285 writes in, love your podcast, but need more episodes. Noted. My question, what world would we have today for the UFC 230 card if Volkov had beat Derek Lewis? Would they still try to save 230 with what it was at the time, or would they have to push another fight?
Yeah, this would be a different fight. I think Volkov, even beating Derek Lewis doesn't make Volkov a household name. Derek Lewis makes Derek Lewis a household name by taking his pants off and making the balls comment, and people getting to go back and look at some of the other shit he does and talks about on Instagram and other places, and people are going to be interested in this fight. And Daniel Cormier takes it because it's possibly easy money as heavyweight fights can be. Don't forget, this is the fucking heavyweight division where they make a big hoopla about how someone was able to how Miocic was able to defend the title more than any other man ever has before. It was 3 times. 3 times is the longest. I mean, that's the longest reign any champ, because you go out there, you got little gloves on, you hit somebody in the fucking head, they go to sleep. So I don't think Cormier would have taken the Volkov fight. That would have been a dangerous fight for him to take when he's looking down the road to either fighting John Jones or fighting Brock Lesnar. So
Lesnar. Whew.
We're looking at possibly still watching Shevchenko versus
Can he get down to 265 anymore?
who?
Isn't Brock
Yeah,
still a
with
big
enough
boy?
drugs.
He's a little smaller now, but no, I agree, because I think they would have just kept on Eubanks versus Shevchenko and just said fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
or forced, gave enough money for young Jacek to come down, because she didn't want to take that fight for this Madison Square Garden one because she didn't say she had enough time to get ready. But I think they'd throw enough money down at her. Yeah. Which would have sucked for her, because then she'd have been looking at possibly a short notice fight and staring down the barrel of a 3-fight losing streak.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, next one comes from Eggbro Ham. Possibly overlooked. Groovy Lando Venata is fighting Saturday, but the rest of the card is too flashy for anyone to notice. I guess. I'm amped to see him fight again, and the guy he's fighting only has 1 loss, so it could be a good one. Did we lose
I think
Branscombe?
he's still there.
Branscombe, are you here?
Maybe he had to go.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we lost your video.
Yeah, I turned it off for just a second. Way to not bring it up.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, we talked a little bit about Venata Frivola. Frivola comes off the Contender Series, and he basically beat a guy in 2 rounds. Very aggressive striker. He's out of the Cerro Longo camp, so maybe that's also why he's on this card, because it's in Madison Square Garden. He's a New York guy, but Lando Venata, for all his shortcomings, should have no problems piecing up Matt Steamroller Frivola. So, if anyone wants to say any more about that.
No, and that's the same reason that I said Branch is probably on this, is because it's there in New York. He's a Brooklyn boy. He's all of his fighting and everything has been out of Renzo Gracie Academy, and that something that I didn't bring up earlier, but Derek Brunson actually has a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and the instructor who gave it to him was David Branch. I didn't know that until I looked it up.
Oh, really?
Or until I was reading it on his wiki. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, he fights out of a Renzo Gracie camp. I'm not sure if he travels outside of Wilmington. Maybe they said, I remember maybe at one time he was going to Jackson Wink for his training camps, but spent his time in Wilmington. I think I remember that before, but yeah, he got his purple belt from David Branch.
Cool fun fact. There you go. If you hated everything about this podcast, at least you can say you learned something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing you got was that techno-colored rising sun background from our man in the not so white room anymore.
That's right. Well, you also learned that Jack Marshman is a Welsh fighter, but they'll probably talk that to death on the pay-per-view card.
Well, no, they're going to talk about his military service. He spent 2 tours in Afghanistan.
He's like a paratrooper or some shit, right?
Yeah, he comes from a long line of fighting Welshmen, even though we don't have a whole lot of them in the UFC. I know these facts because I watched his other 3 fights in the UFC, or 4 fights, and that's what they talked about.
That's all they talk about.
Are we just going to start spewing out random facts?
Yeah.
Because Weidman's got a psychology degree.
There is a 2-parter to this question that we missed from Green. Does DC do what Stipe did to Francis here? So he's basically asking, is the DC Lewis fight going to look like the Stipe Francis fight? I don't think so. What do you guys think?
I don't think he needs to.
I think he's going to have a lot less respect for the technical striking. He's been around the block. He knows how to get in on someone winging punches, and I don't think we're going to see if he gets to the back. He's a lot better of a finisher than Stipe was on the back, and I could see him getting a rear naked to finish the fight.
Yep.
I like Stipe's game plan in that fight, but I don't think DC needs to do anything near that for this.
Right.
I just don't think it's going to go 5 rounds, let alone 2.
No. And Stipe was holding him a lot against the cage and like holding his head down, just wearing him out with his weight. DC's just going to rip him down with a single and just own him.
And I would also I would weigh Cormier's grappling as a step above Stipe's.
No, a world above.
Yeah.
Okay, a world above.
Yeah.
Dude.
All right, moving on. Another one from the Reddit machine. Do you think Brunson being a 3-1 underdog against Adesanya is justified?
I mean, with Brunson's track record of folding in big fights, and Adesanya on the way up, I don't see it. I'm not too mad at it,
I have a little bit of a problem with it being like minus 330. I mean, you're getting into like that's some crazy territory there. Just for Adesanya being so untested as a wrestler, I mean, if Derek Brunson does come to his senses and decides to take him down, like it's not crazy to think he can get him there and put him in bad positions. I would like to see this a little closer to like a minus 2 or 220 type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The 300s is just too much for Adesanya, who I just can't say that he's proven to me that he should be there yet. That's all. Okay, and we got one more from the MMA subreddit. That's a total joke, but I'm going to read it anyways because it's funny. Who's fatter, Lewis or Cormier?
I would say Derek Lewis carries around more body fat than Daniel Cormier. I would be interested to see what
the BMI percentage is there.
I would be very into. I know what Derek Lewis is because on one of the last embeddeds they had him go into his nutritionist and his doctor and he was at 24% body fat. So I would be very interested to see what DC is because I have a theory that though DC has that big midriff area. The reason he's able to pick people up and sky their ass over and over again is because that stomach from years and years of heavyweight wrestling. I mean, I bet it's just one big, massive muscle underneath that. You know, he doesn't have a big chest, doesn't have big arms, but that midriff area, I think, is something he's worked on his entire life of picking just big men up. You know,
he looks solid too, to be honest with you.
I love how seriously you answered that question. Thank you.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it for days.
Yeah, it keeps you up at night. Okay, that's all we got from the Reddit machine, but we got one more from Felipe in San Francisco. All right, this is a very quick turnaround for Lewis, who was pretty much getting beat up the entire time at UFC 229. Is that a concern for his performance on Saturday?
I don't think long fight camp Lewis versus short fight camp Lewis is going to make much of a difference in this fight. But as far as like getting beat up goes, he's like that. He's like Tyson. He's like David Tua. Those old boxers that were built like this, that, you know, went head, shoulders. I mean, they're just built to take punishment. He's not feeling that shit as much as you or I would. His head's not banging around when he's getting punched. Remember that punch he took from Mark Hunt? I mean, the guy's just built to take punishment. I don't think it affected him all that much.
Yeah, and I mean, he lost, 99% of that fight, but I wouldn't say he was getting like terrorized.
Yeah.
You know
what I was just thinking about? We were just joking about like Lewis and his cardio and stuff. I don't even think he should even bother. Because you know what I mean? Like, honestly, the first...
Like, you don't even think he should run?
No. Honestly, he needs to knock him out in the first or second round, or this shit's done anyways. So, does it matter?
You know what I'm thinking about is the last time that we were every one of us, so damn sure of a fight. Rose Namajunas beat the shit out of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So
that is true.
That was the last time all three of us were like, "There's absolutely no fucking way. I can't believe they gave Rose this fight. They're pushing her up there too soon." All three of us, and now we got.
Hey, now we got a contingency, and I called.
Now we got DC's gonna go out there and walk right into a fucking cinder block. And end up rolling on the thing. Dude, he's not going to get the Brock Lesnar
possible.
fight. The next fight he's going to get is John Jones at light heavyweight. He's going to go out on a 2-fight lose streak, and I'm going to hate both of y'all because of it.
The UFC stripping him of 205, right?
No,
not yet.
Oh yeah.
So
I know this for a title. That New Year's fight is for
and he loses both belts. That would suck, bro.
Well, it's like, speaking of things you think that Derek Lewis should not train. I was reading something on r/MMA, and somebody posted some question like, all right, serious question, guys. Do you really think Derek Lewis like actually trains any jiu-jitsu? and all the responses were like, of course he does. He's a top level fighter. Like, he does something. I'm not so sure, dude.
I was surprised watching some of his training footage going into this fight that he had a wrestling coach. I was like, Derek Lewis has a fucking wrestling coach? Are you kidding me? I would love to see Derek Lewis in a brand new, like, show-your-old gi with his white belt tied and the fucking knots going straight up and down, standing in line all the way to the left, waiting to shake hands before class. I think that would be...
First of all, I don't think he's ever put a gi on, but like, do you think his coaches are ever like, all right, it's time for some training off your back, Derek. Go use your full guard here, and we'll work on your triangles. Like,
well, I will tell you, in the training footage, they did have him working off his back. They were working out of side control and north-south position.
Well, yeah, because he's gonna fucking be there.
Yeah.
He's gonna be there all day.
That would be funny to see him working over Kimuras off of his back.
Honestly, he might watch this podcast or listen to it, and he might end up in fucking.
If he does,
gi,
then I'm changing my fucking Tone. I'm
If he
saying
listens to this podcast, he's gonna come hunt us down. I'll tell you
that he's
that.
gonna win.
Hey,
He's gonna
man,
win.
I've said nothing but good things, I feel like.
At
Motherfucker's
least
consistent, and he knocks people out. That's all you need to know about Lewis. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. That's what he's best at. Okay, that's all I got for listener mail. You want to talk some quick rumors because we have two important things that I think we gotta touch on. Number
GSP.
one. All right, you want to talk that first? Okay.
Yeah.
So this rumor comes from, I believe it was actually like a Dagestani news report, and this was the same source that first broke the Conor McGregor Khabib news.
Mhm.
So is it to be trusted? We don't know. It's a legitimate rumor, but it's getting a lot of traction, and that is, go for it, Branscombe. What is it?
we've got. Well, I think we buried the lead there when we said it was a Dagestani news report, but we've got Nurmagomedov possibly in the works or making the deal to fight GSP, and I would imagine it would be at 155. Everything else would be even
Or
further
could it-
speculation.
Could it be to open the 165-pound division, though? That's also where a lot of speculation is coming in.
Yeah, or it could be they're both cutting down to 135. I don't fucking know. But what we do know is that people were talking about them maybe doing the fight. And I told you after that last fight, the only two fights I want to see Nurmagomedov in right now would be either Tony Ferguson or GSP. I know GSP might not be the linear thing for us to do here. Tony Ferguson has fought his ass off over the last 4 or 5 years, deserves the title shot. But I mean, it's fucking GSP. He went up a weight class, wanted the thing. He walked away from the welterweight title, has walked away from the middleweight title. If he wants to fight you at 155 and they believe he can make the weight, they're going to give him the damn fight. That's a big money fight.
Yeah, I like it, but I don't like it at 155. I mean, I don't want to see 36-year-old GSP cut to 155.
He's only 36?
Is he 37? I don't know.
I thought he was like 38, 39.
Still on this, right?
Yeah.
He ain't cutting that fucking low. There's no way.
Yeah, Smith, go look up how old is GSP?
GSP.
I want to say 37.
Let's see.
Because when he fought Bisping, I'm pretty sure he was 36.
He is 37 years old.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to see him cut to 155, especially his last fight's at 185.
Dude, I don't even want to see him cut to 170.
He'd be 38 when they went to fight because his birthday is May 19th.
Like, call me
Yeah.
crazy, but
I imagine that would be a July 4th fight. They would.
when you saw him at 185, didn't he look really big?
Mm,
He looked like muscular. Like,
I mean, he looked muscular, but if you compared body sizes, I mean, you could tell Michael Bisping was definitely the bigger fighter.
yeah, his frame is just not a 185-pound frame. He's like 5'10". Like, he's not huge.
I just worry about people that tack on that much muscle though, and their cardio. That's my biggest
Okay,
concern.
well, let's say the fight happens at let's say 165. Fuck it. Let's just, to make it a little even. Let's say the fight happens at 165.
Okay.
Who are you taking?
GSP. No,
Yeah,
he's a bigger, stronger dude, I feel like.
I think it'll be a fun fight, but I still pick Nurmagomedov.
I think you guys
Yeah,
underestimate how strong and how much control GSP has had throughout his career on the ground.
I agree. I think he's great, but I also don't know if he can go 5 rounds anymore. He was looking a little winded in that Bisping
Yeah,
fight.
but does he need to go 5 rounds?
Yep, I think so. Khabib's pretty damn durable.
We only
But
say
hey.
that. You only say that because you
Yeah,
haven't seen him.
Yeah, have we seen him really tested?
I mean, we've seen him fight 27 times.
And he's played his own game.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the next thing we see, but if it is,
It would be interesting.
it would be cool. I hope it's not at 155 just because I just think that would be rough on GSP.
Yeah, I think the lower you go down in weight, the harder it is going to be for GSP. And it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. I don't want the cut to play like a huge factor into that fight. But anyways, would be cool if it happened. I don't know how legit it is yet. Okay, let's move on to the second thing.
What about the rumor of Anderson Silva and Conor McGregor?
Is that even real? That's not even.
Did Anderson say he wanted that fight?
Yeah, but that's like hearsay. That's barbershop talk.
Honestly, I wouldn't even want to see it.
I'd watch it. Fuck it. I'm root for chaos. But no, that's not what I wanted to bring up. What I did want to bring up, which is like almost official or is official at this point, is of course Ben Askren from ONE FC being essentially traded, I say that with quotations, for Demetrius Johnson. Now, essentially, what is happening here, from what I understand it, is Ben Askren has a contract with ONE FC, and Demetrius Johnson has a contract with the UFC. They can't break these contracts unless something else happens. Well, the UFC is making a deal with ONE FC, which is promotion in Japan, where they're both going to agree to release the fighters from their contracts under the stipulation that they each sign for the other promotion. And that's why this is being called a trade. But of course, in MMA, there are no teams, so it's not really a trade. It's just more of an agreement about signing people who are under contract with a different promotion. But nonetheless, it appears to be official that Ben Askren is coming to the UFC and Mighty Mouse is moving on to ONE FC.
Kind of makes sense.
What the fuck do we think about this?
I think it's good.
We've talked about this before, though. Mighty Mouse never really, he didn't, bond well with the fans. You know what I mean? He didn't draw in a lot of people, and, dude, he reigned for a long time, but...
Well, I felt he was mismarketed from the start, but, yeah, I agree that
you got to sell yourself, too, though.
Yes, you're right.
McGregor does a great job of that. And he makes everybody money all the way around. So sometimes you gotta play your role, and I don't know if he really played that role correctly.
I think he played the role of himself, which, I mean, he played who he is. And I've been a big fan of him. I know a lot of the anybody who watches UFC and appreciates the UFC can appreciate what he was able to do in the ring. He fought from bell to bell. They're at 125, so you're not going to be knocking fools out every time. But I can't tell you how many fifth round finishes did the guy get, where he was able to pull off some sort of submission or a win in the fifth round. He fought the entire time. I'm glad if it was a good monetary thing for him to go over to ONE FC. By the way, it's a Singapore company, not Japanese. Right. They fight out of all of Southeast Asia, but they're based out of Singapore.
Yep, it's in Singapore. My bad.
Yeah, they and over there he's going to be able to get more fights and have a bigger fan base over there because typically it's a smaller, over in Asia, they're smaller people over there. He's going to have more people to fight, and they appreciate that kind of fighting a little bit more. And Ben Askren, the funky one, there's been a whole bunch of shit talking between him and Dana White. Bellator had him for a while, and he was undefeated in Bellator. They let him go while he was their undefeated welterweight champion. He went over to ONE FC, continued on winning, beat the shit out of everybody he was put in there with, except for one time when he had a cut. It's going to be fun to see what he can do in the UFC. It is about time that he was brought over here. I'm going to tell you something right now, Matt.
I never thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, if you don't like wrestlers that just get on top and do their wrestling thing, then you're going to hate Ben Askren because that's all he does. But
he's also got some. He's also got some funky top game jiu-jitsu too. Like the way he passes, he's kind of hopping around everywhere, really strange stuff.
Go back and watch his NCAA career. He didn't do it so much in the Worlds because you can't get away with shit like that. And he was kind of a man amongst boys when he was at Mizzou. But they call him the funky one for a reason because he was a funky ass wrestler. You grab his leg, he's gonna reach over and grab a piece of your leg, doing shit that you're not supposed to do and making it work. Funk rolls, things like that. That's what he was. That's what he was good at. And he did this at the highest level of collegiate wrestling. And 2-time Hodge winner. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but that's the best college wrestler, voted on by all of the coaches in the nation. He won it twice.
So
solid.
This is actually interesting, dude. I'm reading this right now. TMZ ran into Dana White and asked about this trade. And he said, if you look at it, the kid broke the record for the most title defenses, White said. I feel like he never really got the love and respect that he deserved from the fans.
Talking about Mighty Mouse, yeah.
Yes. So I think the trade makes sense. He probably, if Demetrius Johnson, he had a long reign. Really, does he have much more to prove in the UFC? Not really. Maybe he wants to go on to other things. So I'm okay with this.
I think he did. I watched.
I like
Switch, it. Yeah, watched his Switch talk where on his Switch channel he talked about why he was leaving and what was going on there, and he seemed not only completely at peace but kind of into the idea. So good on him. Mm-hmm. Make your money when you can make your money.
I like it. I like it for DJ because I think he wants to go, and I also like it because we finally get to see Ben Askren in the UFC, which is what I wanted. I want to see Ben Askren versus GSP, to be honest. I think that would be a super fun, like high-level wrestling, mixed martial arts fight. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but
dude, isn't that like a big weight difference? Or
no, they're 70.
Yeah, they're 170.
It'll be interesting to see what Ben Askren was over there in ONE FC, and he fought at 170, but here over the last couple of years, it's been basically 185.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Because they have the hydration test, and they don't allow you to cut but a certain percentage of your body weight, and you can't weigh what.
So let
and
me
Mighty
ask you
Mouse
this:
will fight at 135 when he goes to ONE FC. He said. So.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: can Ben Askren cut to 155?
No.
He's too big for that. I think
he wouldn't do it anyway. That's not who he is.
I think he fights at 170. I think he comes to UFC and fights at 170.
He's the kind of guy that would go up to 185 just because he didn't want to cut.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't this be more interesting than GSP versus Khabib?
No, but that's just because Khabib is big right now.
Not enough people know about Ben Askren for that to be the big fight.
Right. Okay, well, that is all I have for rumors. Do you guys have anything else?
Nope.
Those were the two biggest ones. Okay, well, let's go on and get out of here then. This has been Tomorrow's Fights Podcast. Thanks for listening. We are, of course, on Patreon now, so if you feel like you want to donate, go ahead and head over to patreon.com/tomorrowsfights. You can give $1, $2, $10, whatever. Anything that you contribute helps. Other than that, you can find us on every streaming service out there for podcasts. Pretty sure we're on every podcast hosting directory. If we're not, just send us a message at Tomorrow's Fights on Twitter, and we'll get on there. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Tomorrow's Fights. Branscombe, where can the listeners find you?
Find me on Instagram at CromsDog. Be putting up some stuff as I start getting ready for No-Gi Worlds. We'll have more content coming up next week as I get over this freaking staph infection, and leave some comments. Let me know what you think.
Cool. And Smith, what are you working on?
Dude, you know me. I don't like the social media stuff, man. So you can find me here every month, right here, tomorrowsfights.com. I'll be here.
All right. As said, and of course, for next episode, we'll be doing UFC 231. So send us listener mail for that. Thoughts, questions, comments. Also, we will be on Twitter this Saturday. So follow us at Tomorrow's Fights on Twitter. That's where we'll be live tweeting for the event, round by round coverage, play by play, polls, all that stuff. So that's all I got. Happy Halloween. Stay safe, and thanks for listening. Adios.